Well, hey now, folks. John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Welcome to the first in a little bit of my Finish Line Friday videos. So I'll share this with you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry, where's my manners? Um, what do I get to do today? It's drop a tip or two on a Friday afternoon so that your Friday ends well, which is, by the way, the recurring theme, not just of the concept Finish Line Friday, but I think on Fridays, they're great days to get things concluded or at least in a more favorable position. More importantly, it's way better to have things moving forward than imploding, which has happened. Hey, folks, if you happen to be here today for this live spin, which is great, came up rather suddenly, so didn't mean to burst into your social feed, but my loud voice and presence. But what I'm going to say is this: if you happen to be watching me on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, greetings, welcome. Drop a note in the comments. Let me know that you're here so that I can acknowledge you properly. So, what are we all about here today? Hey, look, we'll get right to it on a gloomy Friday in Philadelphia and thinking hard of all the people that have been impacted by Hurricane Helene. So, what's a Finish Line Friday, you ask? Again, how can we move things forward, get stuff done, and also not leave a bad wake in your own week or the lives of others? I'm going to reference something. It's a podcast. Now, I host one. That sounds very self-serving, but I'm going to tell you my reference point, and I actually dropped it in the comments. If anyone is a fan of Mel Robbins, I certainly am, and I'm an incredible coach, speaker, influencer, and podcast host, author, obviously, the 5-second rule and the high five habit. And Mel, if you happen to be anywhere near your social media and you see this, I'm always thinking of you. I think you're one of the best of the best of the best. So Mel has a podcast, and she was hosting today an episode, a recent episode, by a person by the name of Jefferson Fisher, who is an optimal communicator. So look, I never profess, hello, I never profess to being the be all and end all as it relates to communications. I follow the best of the best of the best, which is if I get the chance to learn something, makes me happy, right? So here's what I saw today that really impacted me as a reminder and something that's important to me, which is it was a conversation. Again, I hope you're following Jefferson Fisher, who is a problem solver, came from the legal field. Now he's a communications master trainer, teacher. Please follow him. He's brilliant in regards to helping solve communication problems. And if you're anyone out there, how many times have you had a communications problem in your life? If you're me, all the time. And that's what I do for a living, solve problems and communicate. I have them all the time. So I can only imagine you probably do too. So the gist of the conversation between Mel and Jefferson had to do with having a knot, so to speak, in a conversation. The line that was used, and I dropped the link for the Instagram clip. You're also going to see me drop a note in the comments for Mel's full podcast. And you'll see that after I get done speaking. But this is what it's about. So my niche is business communications, making certain you're getting your intended message received. Folks, that impacts you personally. It impacts you in your personal life. It also very much impacts you in business. And those roads often link, sometimes in a good way and sometimes not. So what do I mean? So they were talking about miscommunication in the sense of, say, in this case, the example that Mel was giving was in regards to, say, a husband and wife conversation, right? And so it was just a matter of this. If you remember nothing else, which is what you say is not necessarily what they heard. Okay. What you intended to say may not be what was received. Anybody who knows me knows that my whole platform is called Your Message Received. And when that was created, it had everything to do with that sense of making certain that the other person is on the same page as you, bluntly, right? So, how do you do it? First off, how do you know if they are or they're not? And secondly, what do you do about it, right? To make sure, because folks, if anyone is here, how many times have you had a miscommunication? How many times? It's a question I ask on most of my live coaching and training platforms, which is that sense. Have you ever had a communication, whether leading a meeting or a phone conversation or an in-person meeting or delivering a live presentation where you thought you were killing it? You thought you were doing great. But by the body language and the reaction thereafter, you saw that you weren't and you couldn't figure out why. Well, here you go. The not is the disconnect. It is imperative that it is your responsibility, without talking down to someone or sounding condescending, that what you're saying is what they're hearing. So, how do you know? Sometimes you can simply do this. Tell the truth. Tell it a second way. If you're speaking to an audience, if you're speaking to a singular person, same rules apply. Hey, here's what I'd like to cover today. Here's what I'd like to talk about today. Here's what concerns me today in regards to the following. Give an example if you need be. People are intelligent, but remember, here's the key. Well, most people are intelligent, not every single person. But the not that you're trying to avoid is this. People are bringing in their own baggage, whether it is trouble at home, worries about something, worried about a job, worried about your family, worried about flooding if the hurricane was coming through, worried about your finances, worried about whatever. All right. What doesn't matter is really, like I said, that they're worried. It's more important, what are they worried about? And the understanding that they're coming in with distractions. So in my world, in communications, distractions are death. You are not responsible or need to feel compelled to solve everybody's problems. However, you do need to know that they're probably coming in with some kind of baggage, right? So you making assumptions that everybody gets where you're coming from or the tone of your voice or whatever. Let me give you an example of what happened to me in the business world. I had somebody tell me, a colleague of mine, they were one of my salespeople and definitely a colleague, and I like them and like them then. I don't like the tone of your voice. That's what they said to me. So insulting. I almost died. Because I guarantee you that's not where I was headed when I was speaking to them. It wasn't. But you know what? It didn't matter at all because that's what they heard. Right? So let's take that example. So what do you do in a case like that? In my case, I obviously wasn't planning to sound condescending. I wasn't planning to sound authoritative or overly bossy or whatever. I wasn't. I was trying to communicate a message, something that was important to me. So that's the not. So what did I do back then? Got defensive. Well, I'm not sounding that way. Well, you are sounding that way. Well, I'm not sounding. And we left in a bad place. What Jefferson Fisher was talking about on the Mel Robbins podcast, which really struck a great chord, was the sense that you're treating the not as an opportunity to unravel a situation. And by the way, you're unraveling it together. That's the key, right? If someone feels that you're working with them, now, there are exceptions. There are times when you must sound authoritative, like life or death situations or something of ominous importance. But If it is anything short of, say, a termination, right, in a company perspective, if it's anything short of that, anything short of a final conversation, here's what you do. And what I've learned and what works is don't talk down to them. Tell me what I said. Have you ever heard that before? I hate that. So here's what you can do, right? The moment you realize there's a disconnect, not just repeat what you said. That sometimes comes off as obstinate, right? But explain where you're coming from or why you're coming from that perspective. Like, for instance, this was asking someone to take more of a lead on a project. And what I could have done was say to that person point blank, look, the reason I chose you to lead this project, which does require more work, is because I'm so confident in your ability. You're the one person. This is what I really meant to say. You're the one person that can handle this better than anyone else in the group, based upon this example and this example and this example. And I'd like to have you be able to empower the rest of the group to be able to come in and keep up. That's what I wanted to have happen. So, unraveling a knot, so to speak. Give an example. Asking somebody, do they get it? Do they understand? Again, remember, that's defensive. You take the initiative that maybe they don't get it. But don't be repetitive. Go back. That was one example that I just shared in that case. Secondly, I could have said to that person, again, who we were trying to lead a project with somebody, look, it's really important that you step up in this case because you'll be able to be put in positions where you're going to be able to shine. You're going to be given more high profile opportunities that can lead to more high profile clients and stronger revenue streams, potential revenue streams for you. I'm confident in your ability. That's why we want to put you up there or out there, so to speak. Comes with a responsibility. I need you to share what you learn with the others because we need to have everybody keeping up. And I'm confident you're the one that can convey the message and they're going to want to hear it. Anything better than I said so or getting defensive or shutting down. So I've had in my business life situations where I've had weekends wrecked because of miscommunications. I don't know if anyone else has had that experience where your whole weekend gets wrecked based on a communication that blows up, and then you have to sit on it all weekend long and worry about it. So that's what we try to avoid here. I saw this clip with Mel Robbins and Jefferson Fisher, who are both killer communicators. And it proves that, number one, everybody is human. Mel gave the example of a miscommunication. She wasn't preachy, and Jefferson wasn't preachy. We all have these situations. Our job, anybody's, yours, mine, all of us, our job is to help people understand, not shove information down people's throats or talk at them like it doesn't matter. So if you picture that knot and unraveling and the communal process of doing it, we're doing it together. Hey, here's where I'm coming from. I just want to make sure that we're clear here. What are your thoughts on the opportunity? Talk to me. What feels good about it? What feels problematic? Here's some potential that I see. What do you see? Do you see any landmines? I'm using my hands in a weird way. But what I'm doing here is demonstrating by unraveling something and making a person feel as if they're included too. Now, look, you can make decisions. You're entitled. If you're in leadership or senior leadership, people are counting on you. But input is always needed, appreciated, and valued. And in the communication chain in business, let me tell you, one of the strongest things that you can do is make certain that people understand what you are intending to say. Because let me ask you, how often are you intending to blow up your sales team, anger them, shut them down? Hmm? Yeah, right. Never. Isn't your intention all the time in business to move things forward? Is your intention to have the other person go check job listings on social media? Because I can't put up with this anymore. I'll bet it isn't. So it benefits you when your organization is not only following along, but taking the leads and making things happen and grow. How do you increase your odds of that? When you're aware of something, make certain they understand what you're saying and give them the grace, right? And more importantly, that's more importantly, and just as importantly, let's try it that way. Give yourself the grace of realizing you don't have to be perfect, but you also aren't expected, and you're not expected to nail it on the first shot. Most people don't, right? But don't be foolish enough to think that just because you said it once, everybody gets it. They probably don't. And again, remember, here's the visual. The knot, number one, you're going to unravel together. Number two, the realization that just like you, they are probably coming in with some sort of baggage. Why are you calling me into your office? Why are you closing the door? And all that baggage, right? If you're coming out into the sales, bullpen, they used to call it, so to speak, sometimes, that typically, like, people get their guards up. So regardless how much they like you, how much they respect you, that they're independent, they work on their own, whatever. Remember that chances are, even though I focus on the business side, personal side definitely comes into play. So maybe whatever they're bringing in to work that day, a bad family thing, or a ticket that they got on the way, or coffee spilled on them, or whatever. It matters because it impacts your ability to comprehend. Distracted minds take in less information. There's a million scientific references that bear that out. So, how do you block that? How do you get rid of that? How do you get rid of the distractions? Number one, don't talk to people like little kids, right? Explain what you want. Explain it in another way by giving an example. Examples are gold, right? Just like distractions are death, examples are gold. Here's what I mean. Here's an example. Give it like that. Don't dumb it down. Just explain it further, right? If you catch resistance, again, remember, you're trying to solve together to untie the knot so that you can move forward and come to that understanding that what you intended to say is what was processed. What you said is what was heard, right? Because most often that's not so. So I'm going to leave you with this. Here's a tactic that didn't work when somebody tried it on me. But over time and over years, I wish I wasn't so judgy about it. Somebody literally said after they talked to me, this is a long time ago, in a work environment, somebody said to me, okay, now tell me what I just said. And I got my guard up. I really did. And it was not even based on them. I took it in a way that they didn't mean at all. I took it as condescending and preachy. I'm not repeating. So watch your words. Understand that not everybody is going to take you at literal face value, but do also understand that if you give examples as to what you mean, don't beg. Oh, well, I really hope it's not that. Let me give you an example of where I'm coming from. And as I just did, how it impacts the organization. Give a benefit. Give a real one. Not because I said so, but a real benefit. And then ask their input as to how they could carry that out. Okay? That's just one way of going about it. But I wanted to leave that with you today because conversations can be difficult on Friday, especially the tougher ones, because you don't want to face it. Conversations can be tough on a Friday because you don't want to, in essence, wreck your weekend, so to speak. Well, I'll give you something that often wrecks a weekend: a miscommunication or silence when silence isn't appropriate. So challenge yourself today. Have the difficult conversation, have a directed conversation, but have it with the grace, knowing that you probably aren't being understood the first time. Make it clear without condescending, and then empower the person you're speaking with. There's your big three. Empower this person you're speaking with or to help you unravel the knot so that you could solve the problem together and help your organization move forward as you go into the weekend and as you begin the following week. Major shout out one more time to the Mel Robbins podcast and to Jefferson Fisher, two giants in the field. I will leave a note in the comments in regards to the link for the Mel Robbins podcast, and absolutely must listen. And folks, enjoy the rest of your Friday. We will be back to you with more live content next week. So here's to getting to the finish line and getting there first, fast, and best. Have a great day, all. Be good. Bye.